Hey everybody, and welcome once again to Ancient Ways for Modern Days. My name is Mike Freeman. I am one of the pastors at Valley Christian Fellowship. And today we're continuing in 2 Timothy chapter 1, really looking at Paul's last letter to Timothy. And today's section really shows an incredible legacy that Timothy has as he is following the footsteps of not just Paul, but of others. And so let me show you our text today. Our text begins in verse 3. Paul says this, he says, I thank God whom I serve, as did my ancestors, with a clear conscience, as I remember you constantly in my prayers, night and day. As I remember your tears, I long to see you, that I may be filled with joy. I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and now I am sure dwells in you. Now, there's some wonderful things being taught here, the wonderful things that we see here that really should make our hearts overflow with joy for the spiritual heritage that you might have, as well as really give us a vision for what it looks like to pass on the faith generation to generation. Here's where we start. Paul says that he thanks God who he serves, and he serves with a clear conscience. And then he says he serves as his ancestors did. You know, Paul here, he's thinking about the heritage of faith that exists within the Jewish ethnic community. This faith of Abraham and this faith of Isaac and the faith of Jacob can go all the way back to the faith of Moses. This is the faith that King David had. This is the faith of all of these patriarchs and all of these noble men and women in his past who had this trust in the one true God. And Paul says, man, I get to be part of this heritage. I get to be part of this heritage. He says, I now serve with a clear conscience. Not that he's perfect, but he is serving the Lord with a clear conscience, desiring to please the one true God. And as he does this, it says that he remembers Timothy in his prayers constantly, night and day. This is a picture of Paul just thinking about Timothy so regularly that he's praying for Timothy so often. Now catch this. This is beautiful, because Paul has a heritage of people that have come before him that he follows in their line. And as he recognizes that, he's praying for Timothy who comes behind him, that will follow in Paul's line as Paul follows in the line of those who were faithful before him. This is a heritage that we see that isn't just the family line, but it's the heritage of mentoring. It's the heritage of relationship. Paul has Timothy as his son in the faith, not in the flesh. Paul is not Timothy's biological father, but he's his spiritual father. And we see this beautiful heritage being expressed with gratitude for those who came before Paul, and also with gratitude for those who come after Paul. In fact, Paul says, as I remember your tears, I long to see you, that I may be filled with joy. Well, Timothy had tears of sincerity of faith. Timothy had tears potentially of his departure from Paul and wanting to serve side by side with Paul, and yet being given an assignment that's different, that caused him to have to break that proximity, that being in the same geographical area. Many of us know those kind of tears as we have sent missionaries from our church family, maybe from our biological family. We've sent them to go serve the Lord. And so we know those tears of saying, you're going to go do an amazing thing, but man, I miss you and I love you. And I wish that we could serve side by side, but I'm so thankful that you're going to do what God has called you to do. Then he says, I'm reminded of your sincere faith. And then once again, the heritage of faith expressed. He says, I'm reminded of your sincere faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now I am sure dwells in you as well. I just love this picture of faith being passed on generation to generation. And look at the honor that is shown to these godly women who prepared Timothy from a young age to trust in the Savior. This heritage of faith that you see in Grandma and you see in Mom, in Lois and Eunice. When we get to chapter 3, we'll see even more about this, but for now, I just want to, what I tell my church sometimes is I want to have a little bit of a holy speculation. Imagine Timothy growing up around these women who were godly women who had faith in the one true God. Imagine him witnessing them praying regularly and walking in integrity, not in perfection, but walking in a way that pleased God. Imagine Timothy hearing them teach about the one true God and about maybe the Messiah that was to come, or the Messiah who had come, as they taught him of Christ. Look at this legacy of this mom and grandma and the impact they have on Timothy, who now has 2 letters in the New Testament canon that bear his name. It just reminds us of this importance of a legacy that we leave for the next generation. Paul is thankful for those who impacted him. Paul is thankful for those who impacted Timothy. Listen, I am thankful for those who have impacted my life by their trust in the Lord, the way they have invested in me in my young years, praying for me, teaching me, sharing the gospel with me, providing for me. And look, I am thankful for those who are my children, biological and children in the faith, who I now get to invest in them, to see them carry the torch forward. And I want to say the same to you. Who is it that you are thankful for as they invested in you, and who is it that you are now investing in? A special word to those who are moms at home, caring for the needs of young children. Listen, you might feel overwhelmed by life, but listen, every day as you do your prayers with your children and you teach your children the scriptures, look, God, He loves that. He wants to use that to solidify in your children a sincere faith like Timothy had. Special word to dads that come home and maybe after a long day, the last thing you want to do is to pull out the Bible and teach your children about the word of the Lord, to share the gospel with your children. Look at this heritage that was left for Paul, the heritage that Paul has upon Timothy. I want to remind you, it's worth it. It is worth it. It is the most important thing we do, is to pass on the generation, our faith to the next generation. See, this is why we have an ancient way for our modern day, because those of our faith in that ancient day have passed it down generation to generation to generation, and now today we get to marvel in the truth of the gospel that has been given to us. This is our ancient way for our modern day, and I encourage you to not only be thankful for it, but to pass it on to the next generation as well.